Every time you read a great book, it's easy to believe the author behind it is some unbelievable creative genius who operates on a completely different level compared to your average human being. But the truth is, behind every good book is a real person, a real human being. Someone with doubts, strange ideas, messy experiences, wild stories, and a life that shaped every page they wrote. So, welcome to Authors by Us, the podcast where we go beyond the book. Here we sit down with authors not just to talk about what they wrote, although we will talk about that, but about the stories, experiences, opinions, and moments that shape them into who they are today. By the end of the conversation, we want you as the audience walking away feeling like the author you once admired from a distance can now be one of your closest friends that you could now grab a cup of coffee with. So if you love books, stories, or the people behind them, make sure to hit subscribe and let's meet today's author. Michael, my man, so awesome to have you with us.
Nice.
Yeah, really been looking forward to this discussion. To kick things off, just for those in the back who don't know anything about you, who want to get to know you a little bit better, get to know the man behind the stories. Who is Michael wrote books?
Pretty boring, actually. Like all like my entire life, it was football, working, just
Mm,
provide, take care of my family. Nothing too crazy. I was already very very chill, very mellow. Don't really get into trouble. Just relaxing.
yeah.
Yes.
So then what was where was the decision that made you want to go and go write books? Like what was the decision that really made you want to go and do that?
To be honest, it started with this idea that my boy had. He wanted to write this stuff. My boy, co-author, JC Hidalgo.
Mm,
We wrote Dance to Time together, this big story that's out right now. But anyway, he had this idea about a Spartan that's going to look for his father. And I'm like, yo, I could be your editor. And then, he started writing, but I started giving him ideas. And then it kind of blew up from there. And I've always loved writing. I just didn't realize it. Like, I used to want to write in magazines. I used to write poetry all the time.
mm.
So, yeah, so that's really what it was. And just kind of, in a lot of ways, because of him, because of that idea, it's kind of got me into writing.
Where did that love for writing come from? Was it just something as a kid that you loved, or was it something you grew into? Where did that love come from originally?
Think it was always embedded in me. Like I said, like I used to write poetry. I used to listen to a lot of R&B growing up, and then I would just listen to the R&B songs and write some of the lyrics and then try to tweak it to make it my own little uh, poetry. That's really what it came from.
Yeah.
I was a super me and my cousins, like, we were super nerds, and we used to wrestle, right? And so we used to come up with
Mm.
storylines and stuff like that, and that's really what it came from. It was embedded in me. I just didn't know about writing novels at the time.
Yeah, and speaking of wrestling, I saw on your TikTok profile you are I would assume at least you're a wrestling fan.
Nerd, yeah.
Did yeah, did the whole idea of wrestling for anyone who doesn't watch it, I can see how that can become a very big inspiration for you, but can you break down exactly how that became the inspiration for you to eventually realize, hey, I need to actually pursue this passion of writing and see where it can go?
So that would be like the super base of the baseline. So me and my cousin's
Hmm.
Miles, writer, he would kind of come up with the stories, and I'm like, yo, maybe we should try to do this. Maybe we should try to do that. Because what made wrestling great, and to this day, what makes it great are the stories. Like, without the
Yes.
story, it's just men and women in tights fighting. But you need the characters, you need the story, you need that build up to truly understand and appreciate what it is. It's like theater, right? Like, if you go and watch a play, if you don't understand the concept, you don't understand what's going on around it, you can't get invested in those characters. Therefore, the play wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, and so what about this idea of a lot of people want to write a book? I've seen it. I've talked with a lot of people who say that they've got stories and they've got all these things they want to write about. Very few actually do, though. What gave you the courage to then go off and say, yeah, I'm pursuing this. I'm going to write this book or books, because I'm pretty sure you're an author of two books currently, right?
Yeah, two books that's currently out. Well, yeah. let's say two and a half. Like so it's like it's one massive novel,
Mm,
190,000 words. That's the time of when I
mm,
co-wrote them. And then there's Mr. Brightside, which is it's a short story, and then I have one that's coming out, The Goddess Who Gave, which is a short story. But in reality, it really simply, honestly, just started off with him coming to me with that idea. But as I'm talking about it, it just reminded me of we used to fan cast everything.
mm-hmm,
So one of the things that I did was me, again, my boy Juan and my boy Jeffrey, who was fan
mm-hmm.
casting Dragon Ball Z. And I'm like, man, but we should write the story, but we have to tweak the story to make it unique for movies. So that's really what drove me, and it just made me want to. I started writing articles, and then eventually it became we started writing this book. So it's just little things that kind of came, together.
Yeah. What kind of articles did you write back then? What were the articles all about?
Okay, so it was this comic book movie website, Bam Smack Pow, that's through fan sided. And I used to do a bunch of fan casts, like everything from the MCU to the DCU. I did Game of Thrones fan casts, and within those fan casts, I would tell stories. But this is already when I started writing this book. I used to do I'm an NFL fan, so I used to write the draft articles, like draft prospect previews, nerding out, talking about who's coming in and so on and so forth. So yeah, also with that was NFL spin zone, also with fan side.
Interesting. How did that affect your writing process then? I mean, you have these inspirations from multiple different areas of places where writing definitely is a big deal, but how did you translate that from just these random stories and articles to then writing a novel that's 190,000 words and moving forward with anything else you've written?
What I learned from that was consistency and just truly how to understand and formulate sentences, which was different from novel writing, but still I was able to learn deadlines and what it's like to have somebody edit, right? Because again, there's two of us writing one story, and between me and him, and then having those editors as well, it's kind of like, oh, okay, this is how this is done, and it kept me, on my toes, kept me interested. And it's always the story side of a story, right? Like even the most superficial things, there is something layered within it, and that's kind of what was my approach within the articles, not the other way around. It was my approach to make my article stand out, which was to tell the story within the story.
No, I mean that it makes sense. Were you in a position where you were getting subscribers or you were growing a following in regards to these articles and other things you were writing?
Yeah, I've had some articles do pretty well because there's other website I can't remember the name of it that I wrote for before Fansided. It ended up shutting down. It was a site that was overseas, but I I got a relative far like they were like I have articles that had like 100,000 reads and stuff like that, and I would get paid. It wasn't a lot, but it didn't really matter to me. To be honest, I just wanted the experience, and I loved like truly love writing. Like it, I eat, sleep, and breathe it. Like that's what I love to do.
And that's one of the things that a lot of people don't think about in regards to anything in life is when they have a true love for something, they're willing to pursue it despite the fact that they may not get paid for it, they may not monetize it, but they just love it so much. Speaking of love, you have three children.
Yes.
You we before we started recording, you said you were in the gym, you work 8 hours. Are you still currently working on writing more novels? And if you are, how do you find the time to do it?
Well, yeah, I definitely, literally, before I went to the gym, I really tried to beat this interview. Like, I really wanted to go to the gym, rush home, and try to be in front of, like, just be stable and, a little bit more organized. Life be life. And I wake up very early in the morning. I wake up, you know, anywhere between 5:45 and 6:30. That's when I do a lot of, like, some of my editing. Have Me and my boy, we have two other massive novels coming out, and then I have my own short stories. I have 10 that I'm dropping one every month, and I started in March, and
Mm,
so for the next 10 months, I'm going to drop one each month. So I absolutely find the time. It's very early mornings, or I can't say late nights. I'm not a late night person really, but there are some nights where I might stay up to, I might be a bad boy. I stay up to 12 o'clock.
mm.
Um, Still up 5:45, 6:30, trying to get that done before I have to, drop my girls off and then eventually clock into work.
Yeah, so is that just like a normal average Tuesday for you? Just just dropping them off, and then going to work, gym, book editing, and novel creation. And by the way, before we go any further about your book, tell us about the books you currently have out, and even some of the stories you said you're currently writing.
The one of the books I have out is the 190,000 mega novel, A Dance in Time. It's a time traveling story, multiple POVs, inspired by things like, it might sound cliche, but in reality, it really is inspired by things like Game of Thrones, Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn, Naruto, and as crazy as it sounds, it really is just a lot of different things. And Japanese culture, Scandinavia, we travel to all these different places. 2075 is the current year in that story, so it's a lot of it's time travel. It's chaos. It's madness. Taking over the world. Magical creatures. X-Men inspired. Yeah, that is that. Then I'm currently editing the book two of Dance in Time, which is I think we officially titled it Shadow of Time. We start time travel Spartan story, and we're halfway done with that. Then we have another one that's about to come out. It's called Echoes of the Kitsune. It takes place about this Japanese, for lack of a better term, princess. Who turned samurai. Right. So we have those are my master stories, and then my shorts. Like I'm dropping the Kindle. Goddess of Time just dropped. I have Mr. Brightside. I'm about to do a relaunch, specifically for KU. I have the Storm That Watches, which is a Yoruba mythological fantasy short story, and then a bunch of other that's already written in the tank, beta read, and ready for me to just launch. Working on covers right now.
And that's, I'm gonna say for the audience right now, that's where the wrestling inspiration comes in. Because I know when I did watch wrestling with my grandma back in the day and all that, that's one of the things that happened the most. Was there was always so many stories going on at once. Do you think that had any effect on just the amount of stories that are in your brain that you're just able to start spitting out? Because most people, they can get one story out, maybe it leads to the next, and maybe there's another after that, but it takes them a while to even think of these, yet you're just popping them out left and right. Do you think that the wrestling, the idea of that, had anything to do with that? Or
Let's say so, right? Because again, it's just look. I fantasy book. A fantasy book in the wrestling world is you create own story. You create storylines for these specific characters. Like, man, if I was a booker, this is what I would do, right? So I could say in a
Mhm.
very minute way that it does have an effect. Me, I was never really good at coming up with ideas, right? I was always a guy, give me something, and I would try to turn it into something. But
Mm.
I've been challenged lately. I do a lot of beta reading for other writers, and just seeing just and being on TikTok actually, right? Like, and seeing like all these other writers and what inspires them, and I'm like, man, like, I just started just things just hit me, and I just had to get it out of my system. So yes, a lot of different things that played a role in. Like, I might watch something on TV, like, ooh, what if this, was this, right? So yes, it's a bunch of different things that play this role.
Nice. And when you look at, for example, you were just talking about earlier about this idea of you were mixing Game of Thrones and Naruto and all these other aspects into one story. What truly allows you to get that inspiration to just throw just basically a jumbled mess of things together and just call it a story?
It's definitely a jumbled mess of things. It's the rule of cool, right? Like, that's essentially what a motto like me and I keep shouting my dog out on one go by is a rule of cool. Like, look, if it's cool, we're gonna try to fit it in, and then we would try to write around it to make it fit. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. And I think a lot of times, there's this fear of you can't write this story. Granted, we didn't sell crap, right? But I'm okay with that because I think you have to take the risk. You have to take the risk and kind of understand the rules and then break them. But if it fits to the overall, like the end game, which is, well, how can I stand out? Because you only go about what's the standard that's set, then how can you be any different from any other writer?
Yeah, and do you think that's the biggest fear for most authors out there? Just this idea of they're trying to put out a good story, but then it just sounds like the next generic thing to come out.
Yeah. So a lot of people, I hear this all the time. They what is it called? Oh my gosh, what's the imposter syndrome, right? I think it's the opposite. They
Mm,
don't. story is good enough. And I think that's the biggest misconception is no, your story is good enough. What
Mm,
makes it unique is the fact that you wrote it. Now, if you try to write something specific for a specific thing and follow all the tropes and all the rules, then you're writing something generic. But if you took a rule
mm,
and you say, how can I make this different? That's the story that matters. You just got to get it in the right hands. And that's marketing. Very tough for
yeah,
everybody.
of course. And I can assume that these tropes are obviously different from book to book. I mean, I'm an avid reader myself, so we all know we see those things from book to book. What would be your advice to someone then to be able to step outside of those generic tropes and be able to move forward knowing that their story isn't just their own, but that it's truly going to stand out in comparison to the rest?
Don't follow them. Don't look too much into tropes. Look into it to understand that it fits. Okay, how can I put this? And why it works for a specific book, right? And flip it on its head, right? So, okay, I see in romance, this always happens, but you don't have to follow every trope that every romance book, every successful romance book follow. Pick something, learn it, because you have to learn it, and then try to make it, fit, but in your way. That's what tropes are important because trope, obviously, readers, we like things. I personally cannot tell you a trope that oh my God, I hate this. Well, the opposite. I can't tell you a trope that I hate. I can tell you tropes that I love, right? Like, there's nothing like, a rags to riches story, or, a hero, that came from nowhere and became, super amazing, right? Or taking a hero
Mm-hmm.
that's amazing, but making him humanized or her humanized, right? Um, Superman, for example. So I think that's really what it comes down to, just recognizing what they are, but in truth, try not to follow them. And I know that might sound crazy. Well, I know what they are, so then don't follow them. Exactly. Don't, because that's what makes you unique. Get it, grasp it, learn it, use it as a science.
And I assume this came from how long have you been writing novels for at this point that all this experience has come from?
Like 12, I want to say 12 years. One story took us like 5, 6, 7 years. It took us forever to get out. We had to write a whole story, right? We came up with the story, we wrote it, and then we realized this sucks. We had to split the book in half, fill in all the blanks to try to make these two stories work to make this duology that we're producing right now, because we made so many mistakes. And I'm going to tell you the biggest mistake that we made: we were not reading. We got all of our stuff from watching TV. So visual is different from prose. But once we started reading more, and I became like I said, an insane reader. These past 5 years, I've read so much. It started to click. So we went in kind of blind. We learned. We studied from Brandon Sanderson's free course. Oh my God, Brandon Sanderson! Without those free courses, I would not be, the writer that I am. And we also learned from, like, listen to podcasts. I'm an avid podcast listener, from everything from Joanna Penn to the Self Publishing Show to Writing Excuses. Like, there were so many podcasts that I learned from. Just wasn't reading like that. When I started reading, I'm like, oh, shoot. So this is how this is done, and that's really what it was.
Yeah, and speaking of podcasts, is this your first one that you've been on, or have you been on others before?
I technically had a podcast. We did it probably like for like a year straight, and then we stopped. It was called Random Rants, and then I used to guest star
Okay.
on this other podcast. Yeah, it's called Geeked Out. It's just a panel with a bunch of different people. This guy was trying to start something. It was pretty good. And it's just timing and opportunity where we didn't continue the podcast. Random Rants. This is my first podcast in like so many years. So I want to say probably like 3 or 4 years. So yeah.
You talked about the idea of visual and books being so different. And mm, I want to get your thoughts on this because that's partly why anytime a movie comes out that's in that's being based on a book, any reader will, or in the majority of situations, any reader will tell you that the book was 10 times better compared to the movie. But then people who don't read books will still look at the movie and claim that it's so good. So, from your perspective, as someone who is a massive media watcher, and then you started reading and you started incorporating all the strategies from both worlds into your books, what were the major differences that you saw that made you go, holy, I was making all the mistakes, or these were the things I should have been incorporating?
The main thing for me is you get benefits in prose that you don't have in the movie. Like you can truly dive into characters in a way that you just simply cannot, because a movie, a 2 hour movie, does not have the same amount of time as a novel, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
interest aspect of a character you cannot do. So you have to rely on ticks in movies, right? Like, the way somebody moves, the way they look. You have to rely on, set pieces, like how in cinematography and all these other fancy things that allows movies to be movies. And you can't then take those same type of characteristics, the narrative style, the voice that people are used to, how an author, could describe somebody walking down the street. In visual, you just have to show them walking down the street, but you can't do all these intricate things unless you have a voiceover, right? So I think that's what it is. It's the intricacies of truly diving into, at least from my perspective, being able to dive into the character, because you can tell a story in 2 hours. You just can't tell all the things, how that story impacts the characters or how the character impacts the story.
Mm. Yeah, honestly, very true. You talked about before how you took Brandon Sanderson's course. You talked about how he was a giant inspiration for you. What would you say is the best way to learn from other authors? If, let's say, of course, you could always say, oh, I'm taking a course. But if I'm reading a book or multiple books and I'm thinking, you know what, I'm working on my own story, how can I take inspiration from those other books and utilize it without it feeling like it's starting to become more like that person? Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I would tell you this: good writers borrow, great writers steal.
Mm,
So you should steal from other writers. 2 steps away, implementing that into your own writing, because there's a narrative style that George R. R. Martin does that would differ from Brandon Sanderson, right? I was inspired by both from George R. R. Martin's, not just his TV show Game of Thrones, which I absolutely love, but I also read all the books. And the more I started reading, the more I really started to incorporate. Oh, this is so much of who I am. Who I am. You got Pierce Brown, you got Tiffany D. Jackson, who's a thriller writer. So me, you can take different elements. Like, okay, if you have a thriller scene, right? You have somebody being chased, but you write it in, his fantasy. Well, who's a really excellent, thriller writer? Tiffany D. Jackson. So I might see how she writes a chapter when, a girl is hiding in the closet, or running away on the street, and then I might see she does her line breaks this way. Or she uses this type of, she uses this type of phrases. So I'm like, oh, I'm not going to use that phrase because it would have fit in my historical fantasy, because the nomenclature wasn't, it didn't work then. But I would take that phrase and flip it, and then I would see her lines and be like, oh, I love the way she did this. I see how she made it quick, one word sentences, so on and so forth. There are different things. You just have to. And by the way, you're gonna get it through osmosis. There's not one thing I can say. Oh, you should look at this. No, no, no. Narrative voice, how somebody writes their characters, and how the story. Anybody can come up with a story. Narrative voice, characters. I think that means like so much, because once you find your own voice, and that's through experimentation, right? That's adapting other people, that's understanding, absorbing other people, even if it's not one of the big writers. Even if you're reading, beta reading for somebody, alpha reading or whatever, you're like, whoa, like I see what they did. I think I,
mhm.
I think I can understand this. You have to be able to learn from everybody. Tell my kids to walk through life with a pen and a pad and always take notes from everything, because you can learn bad or good. You can always learn something, and that's really, it's through osmosis. You will learn.
Of course. You talked about absorbing everything. Writing in general is usually a pretty solitary thing. It's something that you're normally doing and you feel like you're a bit alone, but that usually leads to a lot of people truly understanding more about themselves. What has writing taught you over the 12 years that you have been writing stories that you never would have learned in any other circumstance?
I am smarter than I give myself credit for. I will tell people I'm not that intelligent by no means. My baseline of intelligence is minimal. But if you give me something and I read it enough, I would definitely learn from it. And that's what writing has taught me, right? Like I'm going back to reading because I think that's the key. I think that's the single most important thing. But through reading and then my own writing, I used to cap myself, off of well, this is how smart I can be. And I'm like, no, it's almost limitless, right? I can always learn, and I think that's what it is. I just did not give myself enough credit in terms of how smart I really can be, and that's what writers taught me. Okay, I can be smart, a little bit. Yeah.
Were you someone who was always interested in learning new things, or did that just kind of come about after you started this journey?
Oh no, I was always interested. People like to say I had like some crazy jobs. I did everything from security to massage therapy. So I quite literally those two things do not match, right? But I did it, and it's because I was just interested in learning new things. That's just kind of like what I was. If I can get paid to go to school, I would do that for a living. I would just go to school. So yeah, definitely, always been interested.
There's a point in someone's journey where they realize that fear would have held them back. Looking back at all those years while you were writing stories and everything, and when you officially wrote your first novel, and as you continue to write more, what would you tell yourself if you went back years ago and that younger version of you was just terrified to even get started?
This might sound so cliche, but I would just say, right, like what's the worst, that could happen? Like you're gonna write bad stuff. It's inevitable. Just a pen and paper, just start writing, write that first sentence, get it out. Write through passion always. Just write through passion. People like to, write through like, ideas, but I'm like, nah, if you have a scene in mind, write that scene out. You never know, you know, what it can become. And I'm a planner. Like I really do like to plan and outline and all this stuff, but at the same time, I'm a big believer in writing through passion. If you have an idea, just start. No matter how crazy it might sound, no matter if the sentences don't make sense to you at first, trust and believe you can mold that slop into something good and then into something great.
I had a guest named Tim on a little bit ago. I asked him about perspective and about how it seems like we live in a world now where the perspective has shifted when it comes to the arts, whether that's writing, reading, any other type of art out there. And we're moving more so to a world where everything is built on speed, efficiency, and just how fast can you get from point A to point B. Do you think that reading will just become a skill that's kind of a bygone era? Or do you believe that it will always just be a timeless skill that will always be a necessity?
Oh, I think reading would be a necessity. I think there are certain things that's going to be a bygone skill, and that's going to be just understanding how to spell. Because I suck at how to spell. When spell check came out, obviously it made all of us, a little bit relying on that. So I think reading is always be there because I think you have to like because before reading, right, they're orators, right? Like they told stories, verbal, and writing changed everything, and then therefore we can read and get information. And it's either we're going to go back to more orators where people are going to start, verbally telling stories. I don't think reading is going anywhere. Whether that's, verbal communication where somebody's telling stories to, picking up or scrolling on the phone. I think that the way we read, might start to change, which is sad, right? Like books and stuff like that. Like maybe, because more people are reading on their devices. And print books are mostly becoming collectibles, right? So I think the way we read is changing, but I don't think reading is going anywhere ever.
If someone were to pick up your book tomorrow and they started reading and they just got hooked, they just read through the whole book, and when they get finished, what is the feeling that you want them to walk away with besides just understanding the plot and understanding the idea of the book?
Listen, you are gonna put the book down and be like, okay, I know what a plot was, right? I know that a plot. I don't expect you to get the plot right away. I expect you to think, yo, this was beautiful chaos, right? Like, oh my god, like so I love latch on to a character and like, yo, I really love the way they did character. I really love the way they
Mm.
did dialogue. Character. That's what I want people to put the book down. When they put and they finish the book and they get hooked is, man, I love the way they wrote characters. Like that is my key. I want people to come away. loving or hating, somebody that I wrote.
Do you have a character that you hated to write?
A character I hated to write. A character I hated to write. I'm thinking. You know what? Okay, if I'm being honest, I I love to write a villain, and I don't know if that's typical or not. But when we used to, going back to my childhood, when we used to wrestle, I used to love being the bad guy. I loved betraying my cousin. I would turn my back on him all the time, but I also would take the punishment. I would choose to lose a lot of matches because I knew that was the consequences of me being the bad guy. Right?
Mm,
I love getting booed. Like when I play a lot of street football, one of the things that's such a good feeling is when I go out there and play football, and those guys have their wives and girlfriends, and I'm the villain because I'm making their day miserable. It might sound like
mm.
a bad person, but it's just I'm super competitive.
Yeah.
I like being that. I like the boos. I like that. So I love writing me a good bad guy. But if I okay, I hate to write a character that's not faithful. It's crazy as it sounds. We have this character
Mm,
in our first book. His name is Inuichi. He's married, right? But in the Japanese culture, they have concubines, but there's another term for it that they use. I'm having a brain fart, but we'll say
mm,
mistresses, right? So
mm.
he has that. And I'm like, I hated it. I didn't really like it. Like so that I don't like writing characters that are not faithful, particularly male characters. I don't know why I'm like that. I guess because that's my own. That's just who I am. Kind of coming out like, I don't really like it. So if I had to, is that it's not the characters, more so certain things I have to write because it fits the story. But I'm like, I don't want to do that, but I know I have to.
You talked about just loving to play the villain, write the villain, etc. I think a lot of people enjoy a good villain character, especially if they're extremely well written. What to you makes an incredible villain in any sort of story?
Reason: great villain is the hero in their own story. To them, they have to believe everything that they're saying. They know it's right. To them, it is right. Like there is no self recognition. Like no, I'm doing this and I'm a bad guy. Is no or a bad
Mm,
woman. Like no, this has to be done because if I don't do it, then XYZ will happen. So it's them understanding their own choices and living in their choices. It's
mm.
reason. They have to have a reason. That's what makes a great villain to me.
The other reason I asked that was I watched a podcast with Brandon Sanderson in it. It was a little while ago. And in that podcast, he made the claim that that was one of the main reasons why he thought Lord Voldemort from the Harry Potter series was not a good villain. Would you say that your reasoning in a villain having a reason to quote unquote be a villain, it would be why a character like Lord Voldemort, for example, wouldn't be the best villain in general?
Absolutely, I give you, the flip side to Lord Voldemort, right? Like a villain that was exceptionally well written was Cersei from a Game of Thrones, or Song and
Mm,
Ice. Everything that she's doing is to protect, her children, like her family and herself,
mm-hmm,
right? Abused and she was manipulated and used by her father and everybody else. So of course, everything that she does is to make sure that she's okay. And then it's her children. She has to protect her children, right? And to do that, she has to, keep secrets. She has to kill, the people that needs to be killed if they get those secrets in Stark. So that's a great villain as opposed to, Lord Voldemort, who wanted to kill Harry because Harry was special. Like it very much was a. I get it. I get what he's saying. I think it was perfect. I think it made sense for Harry Potter though, because think about it. Everybody that read it, they were growing up as children, right? So you still needed back then when it was written. You still had the mustache, twirling, villain, and I think that still worked. And Lord Voldemort, I think that if it was written today, it would be a little bit different. Like it definitely would have. He would definitely be written a little bit different, more nuance.
mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. When you look at all of your stories that you've written so far, you go back to all the experiences you've had. You talked about NFL, or you watched NFL, you did street football, you worked as a massage therapist and all of that. Much of a explorative attitude. I guess you could say extra. Are you more of an extroverted individual, and that's what really caused you to obviously have this explorative attitude? Or was this something that over time you just built up because you enjoyed learning and that meant just getting out there more?
Man, okay. So here's the thing with the introverted extroverts. What I always take it as is an introvert in theory, they think better by themselves, right? They are internal
Mm.
thinkers. Like get their best ideas within themselves. They lock themselves in the room and they can, they get that ideas. Extroverted people, they have to play off of, teams and people. In theory, I'm generally a very quiet person. I like just being not doing anything. I'm lazy, right? Some may say I know it sounds crazy. I go to the gym, I do, but I'm like in reality, I don't like to do anything. Am I extrovert? I honestly can't say. I just know that if you put me in the room, I will, network. But if you ask me to go to that room, I'm like, nah, I'd rather not. I'd rather stay home. You feel me? So if I'm home, I'm good. And then, but if you tell me to go, I'm probably gonna say no. But if I get there, best believe I'm gonna, network and talk and just try to, make it a good time.
What's something that you could just talk about forever outside of books, obviously, but you seem to be someone who is very just, you have a lot of experience in so many different areas. What is something that if you and I just sat here for a good 8+ hours talking about one thing that you could just go on and on and on and on about?
Oh, okay. Technically wrestling and football, right?
Hmm.
But even beyond those things, it's just life. And as cliche as it sounds, really it's just life. Like, spirituality and just, different beliefs because I am a person I truly do love to absorb and learn, things from people and just talk about like, different experiences and like, what you believe in and why is this way and what are your thoughts. So, besides football and wrestling, it would generally be spirituality and kind of like that spirituality and life, combined, just truly just understanding, who you are, as a person.
That is, it's quite an interesting perspective. And I can't help but ask, did your journey as a writer really bring you to that conclusion in terms of talking about life in general? Because that's not a response that, let's just say, the majority of people would have.
Would say I think it was not so much as my journey of writing that brought me to that. I think it was just it's funny, massage therapy school, right? Like you massage therapy is crazy, right? It's very much, it's very much like about the feng shui, the spirit, the aura, like, the yin and the yang,
Mm,
and it's all of these, non-physical things that also go into something that's very much physical, right? Like so there's these
yeah.
so much that goes into it. And I think that actually taught me a lot. And I of course I had to go to school for it, but I also taught massage therapy for 2 years. So I didn't just go to school for it. Like I actually taught it for 2 years. And that brought on something different because of the different types of people that I've met.
Mm.
I am thankful that I even experienced that because it did help me grow and understand, people and just different walks of life. People I would have never met. So that I think that's really what it was. And then writing just allowed me to kind of expand on that because different characters, right? And the escapism is real. Like, like you can't really pick up a book and just truly escape and fall in love with a character. Whether you're reading or writing it, you can really fall in love with a character or a story. Like, yo, like this is crazy. And then not to mention social media, as annoying as it can be, a lot. Getting to know and hear and absorb from different people. Yeah, it's just been a overall growing experience as I live. But it started with massage therapy, I think, to be honest.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
quite interesting. And now I don't, but I should ask this before this. Are your children currently still in school?
Yeah, they're small. Well, not small anymore, but 16, 15, and 11, 10.
Okay. So yeah, they're getting to those ages now where their minds are really starting to develop and they are obviously starting to make a few more decisions of their own and so on and so forth. How do you look at your experience, how you grew up and the experiences you have, and then showcase to your children how they, not so much how they should live, but more so how they should find life as something to be explored rather than what we see the majority of everyone doing today, and that's just being on social media, doom scrolling 24/7, almost nothing to really show for it.
Yeah. For me, it's because I grew up in an era where we would go outside, right, and the street lights would tell us when to, come home type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't let my daughters do that. It's more so like, because you can learn, you can truly learn things, when you're not, locked in on the specific, like I said, doom scrolling, right? Like it's just, having conversations, like, playing games and just telling them like, hey, like no matter what you're doing, like, in school, and I told you this, earlier, where just walk through life with a pen and a pad and truly do try to learn, good and bad from people. I really, really, really appreciate two things. Be a good person. Because to me, that's the single most important thing. I don't care what they do in life.
Mm-hmm.
I care. Most important thing to me is being a good person. That's the number one thing. Being a good person. Put kindness out to the world, because there's a lot of, there's so much negativity. Put kindness out there. You will be the one to put kindness out there. Second thing is absorb information. Like truly learn from people. Like, be the one. I make my kids go talk to other kids at the park. I used to always make them do that, because being socially acceptable and being social, it helps you grow, because you get to know people. So I force them, hey, y'all invite those kids to come play with y'all. You go talk
Mm.
to them.
I always am interested in this idea of AI in regards to writing books.
Okay.
I've heard so many different experiences on it, but I'll tell you one real quick and then I'll get your thoughts on it. I read an article a couple months ago where this author got her work completely ripped off because what happened was she was writing this book and she was keeping in contact with a publisher and with another company who was helping her out with editing and all that. Well, they apparently used AI to rip her whole book for the most part, and then they published it before she had a chance to. So on a future book of hers, she literally put a stamp on it, pretty much confirming that AI was not used in any of the writing of her future book, and she's just completely against it now. Where do you stand on that in regards to AI in with books?
I'm one of the people that stand like directly down the middle. Meaning AI has become, and dang, it's hard because I do not like talking politics, right? But guess what AI has become? Political.
Mm,
So I'm going to use the notion of a gun. A gun is inherently not bad, right? You can put a gun somewhere. The gun cannot do anything. Who's the only person that can operate a gun?
another
Person,
person.
right? Now, a person can operate that gun. The person can do good with that gun, and what do you consider good? Somebody. Person can do bad with that gun. They can go and rob somebody. That is a personal
Mm,
decision. You cannot control the weapon. You can take a pencil and turn it into a weapon. You can stab somebody, or you can write a love letter. That's how I think of AI. I 100% understand why people are against it. But people are against the typewriter. People are against the computer. People are against spell check.
mm,
AI is not going anywhere. So you have two options. You can hate it or you can adapt. People are going to use it for evil. There is no way around that. We can
mm,
only control our own actions. We cannot control the actions of other people. As indie authors, we're always at risk. So when we give our work to somebody, that person can still take our manuscript and, hey, I gave it to this person. They could just go ahead and publish it. Like, it's like that's just kind of the thing, that we are always at risk, unfortunately. But your favorite studios are using AI. Disney is using AI. So it's like, what are you going to do? Are you going to boycott Disney? Are you going to not read? How are you going to find out these publishing companies are using it or not using it? When billionaires are doing things we don't know, so I'm like, we just got to be careful. I get it. I 100% get it. But I'm going to tell you something. Yeah, I cannot write through your experience. AI does not know about your childhood friend when y'all went to go climb a wall and then he fell and broke his arm and then a girl came and she helped him up, or you know what I'm saying? They don't AI doesn't
Hmm.
know that. It quite
Yeah.
literally doesn't know because only you experienced it. It cannot write human. It no matter what, it does not have a soul if you believe in that stuff. It does not
Mm.
have human experience. It has data. Data is not experience.
Yeah. And I'll admit that's pretty much where I stand on the majority. I have a more of a business background, and so I guess you could say I utilized AI a lot more than the majority of people. But it's always an interesting question because we all know that AI is progress right now. But unfortunately in the world of books, it's
Yeah.
so controversial because there's a lot of things that can happen. So it's always an interesting thing to ask. But what would you say moving beyond that, and as you look at the rest of 2026, you move towards finishing your future projects, which you said you're still putting out more stories, looking to write more books. What's the goal here? Because I know for a lot of authors, the initial goal is kind of just write a book. That's kind of the initial goal that they think of. And then when they write a book, it kind of becomes one of those situations where writing the next book and the next one and the next one, it kind of, I don't want to say it lowers the satisfaction level, but there's kind of that feeling of, well, it's just the next book. So what's that goal that's driving you forward?
It is to make money. I want to make money off of the thing that I love. But more important than that, I want to be known to other authors and readers so that I can have a voice. I do have a voice. I can talk, right? But where's the thing to back it up, right? And I need to be able to help people for free, so I can talk to them verbally and just give back. And that in order for me to do that, I have to have success because I can talk till I'm blue in the face. But if I don't have anything to back that up, then why would you listen to me? And that to me is the most important thing. How can I help other authors understand that you can come from where I came from, grew up in the hood in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have this expensive, literary degree, and you can do it kind of in an unconventional way, right? Like I listen to so many and then that look like me. It's not enough. They're out there, but it's not enough black and brown people that truly has the exposure and the power that we need to influence other people that look just like us to find success. And and in this realm of writing, because that's what I need. I need that because I need to be able to help people for free. People can look and like, yo, I love what man. I can follow him because you see, he has proven to put in all these mistakes I'm making. I'm going to tell you as I'm making them. Right now, I have my cousin, right, who is one of the single most creative people I know. He can write and he can draw. Fantastic digital artist. He could amazing. But I'm making all the mistakes now, doing what I'm doing right now, dropping these 10 stories a month, on Amazon and just trying to capitalize off of Kindle short reads. So when he goes and does it, I'm like, yo, don't do this. You should definitely do this because I made this mistake.
Mm.
That's key. I'm okay with making a mistake and tripping and then falling so somebody else can see, oh crap, I don't want to trip in the same ditch that he just tripped in. Let me just walk around it. Or let him, he can help me. He can pick me up and carry me over because he's done it already. Can't do that without success.
And to go a little further on what you said,
Yep.
you talked about having a voice.
Yes.
How ironic is it? And I want to get your thoughts on this. How ironic is it that nowadays people are so, it kind of comes back to imposter syndrome just a little bit, but how ironic is it how people look up at the people that they claim have voices, right? Doesn't matter where you are, whether you're in the business world, you're watching YouTube, Netflix, or you're wherever you are, they'll look up at these people, put them on a pedestal, and claim that they're the ones with the voice, that I gotta listen to them. But then they won't go out and actually find their own voice or put their own voice out there. What's your message to people who are just stuck in that, we'll call it whirlwind?
Look, if you can only be stuck in that if you haven't found your purpose. Somebody told me, and I'm gonna keep shouting out my people because I love them dearly. My cousin Miles, he told me one thing that he heard from somebody else, and he told me this, and I'm like, yo, this is amazing. people lose their purpose, right? But when you're an adult, if you want to find your purpose, think about the things that made you happiest as a child, right? Within that realm, I told you writing, right? I used to wrestle, we used to come up with storylines, and I used to write poetry and stuff like that. My
Mm-hmm.
purpose.
Yeah.
Unless you want to have a voice, unless you want, I can't give you any advice, right? Because you're going to only lock in on the people who you can listen to. But if you want to have a voice, you just have to start speaking. I was not about to start a TikTok. My boy Wonka like, man, we start TikTok because we can get more readers. I'm like, man, I don't want to be on camera. My boy Jeffrey, he's the director, Jeffrey Craig. Michael, man, you should be on camera. I'm like, I don't want to do that. And then I fell in love with it because I really did enjoy and do enjoy teaching. I always love teaching. Don't know what it is, but I really want to be able to have. So just do it. Get in front of the camera, talk to the void, go out and try to reach people. If you have kids, always talk to your kids. If you have friends, talk to them, encourage them, breathe life into people. So just do it. The people, like you said, the people that you're putting on the pedestal, they're not, honestly, they're not worried about you. Like you said, there are some who are amazing at what they do, but we're talking specifically about the ones, like you said, that get you into this whirlwind of, I'm going to listen to them because they have, X amount of followers. And I know it sounds contradictory because I'm saying I need that type of success, but I do though, because I want to
Mm-hmm.
genuinely help people for free. But I need success. You just got to start
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah.
Like what you
Yeah. I appreciate that. But is that something you're looking to do in the future? I know on your TikTok you give your own advice based on your journey and so on and so forth. Is that something that you see yourself kind of going back towards and using to find success in the future? Is teaching people who are on this path, or do you see yourself mostly just utilizing your social media page as just a way to kind of document your journey, and then people might be able to pick up some lessons here and there from it?
Oh no, I want to be able to be put in a situation or put in a place where I can speak to an audience, a group of people, and teach them.
Mm,
No, absolutely, it's not. It's. Listen, if I could do it through social media, I would just do it through social media. I'm okay with that too. Like if I could do what Brandon Sanderson did, but she was teaching a class. But if I could do that and just talk and just really just have people follow and learn. But I want to get back. I want to be able to stand in front of a group of people. And just be able to tell them like the things you can follow on my TikTok or YouTube or whatever. But now I want to be able to talk to them and just really just again breathe life into them and say, look, trust me, if I can do it, for a fact you can do it, because I don't have a traditional background, and I'm like, I
mm-hmm.
need this to work this way because there's something palpable with me as an individual and people that's like me and some of the other authors who I'm dealing with, that no, we need more people like that, because people need to understand like, no, you can do it this way. It's how.
And speaking of teaching, you say that's a passion of yours that you want to do, that you want to show people based on your journey what you can help them to accomplish, because you claimed yourself you didn't come from much, and now here you are so far and you're only going forward. What would be the major things, if you could just say three things, someone came to a class of yours and they were saying, okay, I am someone who is just beginning as an author, or maybe you're teaching something else. But in general, what are those three things that you're telling them that's going to help them to take that initial step forward? And then not just to take the initial step, but to just leap. Because it's one thing to just take a step forward, it's another thing to take the leap and go all in.
Read is number one. Read.
Mm, mm, mm,
Find people that you can communicate with and use the old system, the bartering system. How can I help you? Let me tell you something. The people that's helping me right now, Sarita Benjamin, A. Duhern, some of these people, like I don't know that, like some of them I don't even know their real names. Like there's Lo, there's Yana Sanchez, there's my boy Miles Harris, on JC Doggo. There's some people that I'm missing. But all these people is like, it's through networking. It's just opening my mouth and communicating and just trying to bring people that's like minded people into my circle, because I can learn from
mm.
them. Help me, I can help them. Reading, networking, because the bartering system is real. Because before money, before all we bartered. That's real. And then the third thing is Tell yourself you're good enough. Imposter syndrome to me does not exist. I kid you not.
Mm.
My thing is, it's not that my writing isn't good enough. It's just I just need to be able to get it in the hands of people. My marketing sucks massive balls. It just I cannot because I'm like, and I'm trying. I'm really trying, but it's just and with this, it's one book after another. It's just you have to produce as well. So it's not really be the first book, right? Like Patrick Rothfuss is one of those people. First book, oh my god, it blew up. I think not Art of Kwon, but ML Wong. I think with hers it was Sword of Kaigen. I think that was one of her first books. It just blew up.
Hmm.
I say Cosby. I think one of his first novels kind of blew up. So it's not often, and I'm okay with that. So it is that like just imposter syndrome is not real. Like thousands of authors out there exist. Who cares? Because that's where there's millions of readers. What makes your story not good enough? Forget is my story good enough, and tell yourself that my story is not good enough. No, 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 no. What makes your story not good enough?
Mm.
Why isn't your story good enough? Because it is.
And speaking of your story, real quick, you said you grew up in the hood in Miami. You
Yeah.
didn't come from much. You didn't find yourself to be that intelligent. What is a story from your life that you look back on and then you say, yeah, that defined who I am today and it helped me to truly become who I am today?
It's an event. Wanting to play football and being too stupid to do what I needed to do to make sure that it happened successfully.
Mm.
I, for a short period of time, I did not take school seriously. And then when I wanted to play, the coach said, "No, your grades not good enough." All right, whatever. That means you just don't believe in me, which is not true. The coach was right. My grades were not good enough.
Mm.
And then bust my butt. And then me busting my butt, I couldn't get my GPA up high enough in time enough for me to really play. There is not a single person that ever out trained me ever in life. Problem is, all the training in the world didn't matter if I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do in school. And
Mm.
I knew this all, but I just didn't really care until I had something I really wanted. Could never get it. I was stupid. Being dumb, I messed up. And that taught me, like, you know what, I can't, I would not let that happen with writing. I got into writing late, but I'm like, what I'm not gonna do is just let it fall by the wayside. I'm not gonna be dumb. I'm not gonna, you know, not truly learn and understand how this all works because then be my same, 15, 16, 17-year-old self. And I'm like, no, I can't do that. And then what am I? And I have kids. I'm like, I need to show them that no, you can follow a passion, you can follow a dream and find success. I don't want y'all to do it as old. I don't want y'all to do it as late in life as I did. But this is just, a way for me to say, like, no, you really can't do this. And my daughters are actually proud of me. Like, I wrote a book and she Googled it with her friends. And it's like, oh my God, like, his book is right there. It's real. So that, to some people, that's enough, right? And I really do love it. But I'm like, no, I need other people to understand, no, you can find success
Mm.
to do it.
We've learned so much about you so far, and that's kind of the big thing that we've been aiming for here at the on this podcast, because the way that I see it, because I fell for this too, was before I started it, I would look at these authors that I would read their books and I would be awestruck by them. And so because of that, we talked about before putting people on a pedestal. Well, I would put these authors on pedestals and I would just be thinking, holy, these guys are creative geniuses. These guys are absolutely insane. But then someone made a comment or told me something a couple years ago, and all of a sudden my mindset started shifting. They were like, dude, those people are real human beings too. And
Yeah.
it never occurred to me until then. And now the whole reason I want to have this podcast is so that I can help people like yourself and other authors to truly help people understand who you are as a person. So, what's one thing that you'd love to tell the audience about yourself that they just would never find inside your book?
I'm a very secretive person. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I love to engage. I love to talk. I'm a very secret person. It's hard for me to talk about myself, but I would say, I don't know if you can't find this in my books. No, you won't actually. If you read my short stories, you'll think I'm a nut and dark, and I might kind of be a little. But I generally just want to continue to be an example of kindness does breed, success. And whatever that may entail, like I just want people to understand, be good, be kind, be the good that's out in the world. We have so much negative discourse around so many things. Like, why be part of it? Why fall victim to it? Why is it that negative headlines, the negative things always have to be the louder voice? It can be 100 people that hate something, right? And a million people love it. But guess what's going to get the headline? The 100 people that hate it. Why feed? Why be dope? Why are we so divisive? And this coming from somebody, I love to argue. I love to debate, but it's healthy, a healthy debate. I don't like to
Mm,
fight. I
yeah.
don't like to curse, and I don't like to yell. So I don't yell. I don't curse.
Mm,
It's just because it's just not who I am. So if people want to know something, what I said, I don't yell. I don't curse, and I truly do believe in stop giving the negative voices the bigger platforms. Be
mm.
different. Dare different by being kind. Trust me, it's okay. You're gonna be okay if you're not.
Yeah, we all could use a little more positivity. For those who want to see more of you, you get free to have the floor. Where can they find you at?
Oh, I actually started a YouTube channel giving writers advice. It's Michael
Nice.
did that. But I really just take like some of the stuff I do on TikTok. Michael M Writes. I think that's my TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
Michael M Writes. IG is exactly the same thing. And that's really what it is. I'm usually on TikTok, usually on IG. Very accessible. YouTube is there if you want, some, smaller videos. But IG and TikTok. Michael M Johnson. Michael M Writes. Amazon. Michael Johnson. Small, so you have to really search and scroll a lot.
Yeah.
I read a lot of books. I'm not like this, 200 book person.
Yeah.
80, 50 to 50 to
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, yeah, it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Whenever I see those comments, it's always funny to me. Or those videos, someone's going like, "Oh, I read 300 books this year," and I'm thinking,
How?
You read 300 books in a year?"
I can do it. I just can't. Oh, you know what? You said something I wanted to kind of get back to. You said authors that put them on a pedestal, right? I also want authors to understand that the people, the big names, they have a machine behind them. They're not. They're not. We don't know their record. We don't know how the first manuscript looks. We have
Mm,
no idea. So that's why I want to go back to telling people like that your work is good enough because we don't know how Brandon Sanderson's first draft looks. No
mm,
idea. He has a
yeah.
machine by Pierce Brown's first draft, S.A. Cosby, Tiffany D. Jackson, all these people. We don't know how their first draft look. No idea. Your writing is good enough. They have a machine. So people you have to remember like they've been through editors and beta readers and alpha readers and like just write. Put yourself out. You are good enough. Trust me, you're good enough.
You heard it here, folks. You are good enough. I want to thank
Yes.
you so much for coming on, Michael.
Thank
This
you.
was
I really
awesome. We definitely, this was such an enjoyable conversation. I'm looking forward to seeing uh, what you what you have for us moving forward. Like you said, you're putting out tons of stories on TikTok, writing more books. Definitely go check out his books. Again, that's A Dance with Time and Mr. Brightside. Am I correct?
Brightside right now, and then it's the goddess who I'm putting down Mr. Brightside. The goddess who gave is definitely going to be out March 15th. This is dedicated to the women who give so much to themselves and they don't expect anything back. This is my love letter to all of you who sacrifice so much for so many of us. A lot of us. Mothers. Daughters, aunts, uncles, friends. Like women are amazing. They really do run the world. I have to admit it. You might want to. You can edit that part out. No, I'm messing with you.
Nah, nah. Hey, I love the messaging here.
Yeah, but yeah, man. So yeah, that's it. The Gospel Game is out right now. A Dancing Time is out right now. Mr. Brightside will be out soon. But I'm like I said, every month I'm putting out a new story on Amazon. So just look out for it. I will promote it ad nauseum until people get sick and tired of me. So
Awesome, awesome. Again, thank you so much for coming on, Michael. And yeah, this was awesome.
it really was, man. I really appreciate it.
Welcome to the closing thoughts section of the Authors by Us podcast, where we go over some of our favorite moments from the episode. Today's episode with Michael, I think the interesting thing about this conversation was the fact that this guy, you could tell that he was all about just keeping it real. keeping it real. And I'll get a little bit more into that in a second here, but real quick, well, actually, no, let's get into that now. Let's talk about the first big thing that I really loved from this episode, and that was his rule of cool. And this is something that, when you think about it, it makes so much sense, and yet people don't really take advantage of it much. Basically, the rule of cool is this idea of being able to take inspiration from 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 different things, and then basically creating your own unique mix, your own unique blend on whatever it is you're doing. And I've had the pleasure of reading a couple of short stories from Michael, and I can tell you that he definitely does that. But the reason why this is interesting is because we as people need to understand how to apply this for ourselves. And what I mean by that is there is so much out there today. And when you sit back and think about it, it's not good nowadays to simply just exist, right? What you really need is to have the ability to take inspiration, mix it, blend it, and create your own unique style. And again, this is something that everyone struggles with, and plenty of people don't know how to truly get out of that. I think for example, for myself, I did the same thing. And what I mean by that is I watched podcasts for 2, 3 years at this point. I think I started at around the end of the COVID quarantine, and I loved podcasts. I love conversations and all of that. And for the longest time, I thought to myself, it would be really cool to start a podcast. Really cool. But then of course, I didn't know exactly where to start to use that rule of cool. I didn't know deep down what were the interests that I had that people would want to listen to. What were the things that I could bring to the world? And it wasn't until I've mentioned this multiple times before, but it wasn't until I got to the point where a realization hit me. I love conversation and I love reading. Can I apply the both of these together and mix them into a podcast that would be really interesting to watch? And that's when it hit me. Why don't I just talk about the stories that these authors go through? And why don't I go beyond the book? And why don't I sit down with authors every single week and just showcase how their lives affected everything that they wrote on the page? Because I love conversation. I want to get to know more people, but it would also help me when I'm reading their books to then understand them to the utmost degree. And so, again, we combined multiple different facets to create this podcast. And I think that's something that it's not something that I can just straight up, or anyone can just straight up give advice on. It's something that you have to look within yourself. You have to understand yourself, what it is you are interested in, what inspires you, and then take it from there and figure out how can you put your own personal blend in there. So that's the first thing I wanted to point out, because that whole idea of rule of cool was really, really interesting. The second thing, though, and I think this one is something that all of us can apply. Michael talking about how he didn't come from much, didn't have a huge IQ, but he still was capable and he still loved learning and digesting information. We've all heard about it before when you go down the rabbit hole of something. I think this is something that people need to do more often. Even if you have the tiniest interest in something, and this is something that you can apply in everything, whether you're a writer, whether you're into any other form of art, whether you're a reader, whether you're someone in the fitness industry, literally anywhere you can apply this. Because if you find yourself having an interest in something and then you're willing to go down the rabbit hole, you will come out the other side an improved person. But I think the reason why people don't do this is because of, we'll call it beginner syndrome. And what I mean by that is nobody nowadays wants to feel like a beginner. They just don't. And the reason behind that is simple. It's because nowadays, with the internet and with social media and with all these other outlets to get information, you literally live in a world where there are, before, if we go way, way, way back in the day, you only had your own cipher circle, right? You only had your own circle that you could look at. So if you were fairly accomplished, then you were above the majority of people around you. But nowadays, people don't want to look like a beginner because there is so many other people that they know of now that are just on a whole different league above them. For example, let's take writers for a second. Imagine you're an indie author who is currently working on writing their debut novel. Well, guess what? If you just go on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, etc., Google, you go on anywhere and you start looking up authors, you're going to have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of authors, right? Who are bestsellers, who, okay, maybe not bestsellers, but obviously they're just like way above you, basically. And then you'll have indie authors who are currently in the works of writing their fifth book in their series. And then you're going to have other people who are even one step ahead of you in writing their debut novel. So you have all these people who are on a different level than you, that it makes you feel like you are just a bare bones beginner and there is no way that you can stand out by comparison. And so that's why people are afraid to go down the rabbit hole, because they think, oh my gosh, I'm an absolute beginner. I'm a novice. No one's going to want to listen to me. No one's going to want to see me. No one's going to want to hear about my journey, etc. And that's where you end up with people who just want to stay in their comfort zone and not branch out. So Michael's example is a phenomenal one in showcasing that as long as you have an interest in something, even if it's even if it's, let's say, a 2% interest in something, if you are at least willing to take a shot at it and go down the rabbit hole and learn as much as you possibly can and then apply it as much as you possibly can, you can accomplish incredible things. And for Michael, this means that he's able to write a ton of short stories. He's able to get more novels out. And then in the future, he plans to focus on teaching others based on his own experiences. It's incredible what you can accomplish when you're willing to be a beginner and just go down the rabbit hole in some way, shape, or form. And that kind of also links to the next and final thing I want to talk about today. And that's the fact that he talked about how the biggest writers out there have machines behind them. The Brandon Sandersons of the world, the Tiffany D. Jacksons of the world, they have machines behind them. We don't know how the first draft of their next novel looks. We don't know, and not to mention, you got to understand, these are people that have done these things for years, right? And then they've got editors and they've got beta readers and they've got everything behind them to be able to put out incredible types of work. This applies to everything, literally everything. In everything in life, the people who are ahead of you by a large margin have a machine behind them. They have ways to ensure that they are putting out the most polished work that they possibly can. And when you're able to understand that, it helps you to realize that your story or the things that you are doing still matter. They still matter. Just because you're not able, for example, for a writer, just because you're not able to write a story in 3 months or whatever, and then have the most insanely polished story of all time, doesn't mean that it's not good, that it's not worth reading, that it's not worth enjoying from your audience's point of view. And when we realize that the biggest people have machines behind them, it helps to ensure that we can be confident in ourselves to move forward, despite the fact that we may not have that. So, yeah, those are just a few quick thoughts that I had in regards to this episode. Let me know what thoughts you have from this episode. And with that, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll talk with all of you next time.